understand mind control. The CIA experimented with this back, what was it, Nancy, the 1950s and 60s?
Yes.
Where they inflicted tremendous amounts of pain. They used drugs. They used various means of torture to fragment the minds of their testees so that they could program certain alters. They fragmented their minds into, multiple personalities. And they learned through their experimentation that they could program certain parts of the brain, certain compartments, to carry information. And the person who was the victim, I would say, their testee, wouldn't even necessarily know they're carrying the information. They wouldn't even necessarily know that they had been instructed to do certain things until something triggered that alter to manifest itself, and then they would go and... So this way, somebody, like in a war-type situation, could be captured, could be tortured by the enemy. They wouldn't reveal any information that was confidential. And maybe even a person who was a part of an enemy army could be captured and tortured into multiple personalities and programmed to go back when he went back to his camp to turn on his fellow soldiers. So, I mean, there were uses, and this is very diabolical and very evil, but we know that these types of things, I mean, this is declassified. This is information that we know. I mean, you can get some of these documents online. I've read them. And I would just caution you, in the coming days, you better look out for copycat shooters, because this always seems to be the pattern. When we see one of these things, there are always a number of copycats, I think a number of unstable people out there that are just ready to go off, and when they see something like this, it suggests to them, whether real or orchestrated, that, hey, now's the time, Anyway, the point is, folks, we have to ask these questions. We have to explore these things, and I want to get to your phone calls as quickly as we can, so I want to get through this. Now, before the break, we were talking about mind-controlled shooters. And one of the things that jumped out at me in the media was the fact that they said the shooter was listening to one techno song on repeat before shooting. He left it going in his apartment, but he was listening to it. Evidently, it's still going, because I guess the police still haven't been able to enter in his apartment because he's got the whole place booby-trapped. Now, quoting from the Daily Mail out of the UK, they say Holmes, who had been working towards his Ph.D. for a year before dropping out, had one techno song blaring from his stereo in the hours before the massacre and left the music on repeat in his booby-trapped apartment as he departed to commit the massacre. And I asked the question before the break, was this techno song an MK Ultra type trigger for him to carry out his massacre? I don't know. Just asking the questions. He was living. Another interesting fact is that he was living in Colorado, but he had Tennessee license plates. As he said, another point, as we said, he had been working toward his Ph.D. for a year. Then he dropped out. At a press conference, it was mentioned that Holmes completed his degree with the highest honors, and that he was at the top of the top in the neuroscience field. L.A. Times quotes one of his classmates as saying, in high school, I guess, that he was really smart. So this guy was not a sloth. He was a full-time student, yet nobody knew him. Neighbors at the university housing in Denver described him as a recluse who kept to himself. One student said nobody knew him. No one. So you put that with the idea that he had Tennessee license plates, makes you kind of wonder if, well, is it even the same guy? I don't know. I mean, you have to ask the questions. They said he was in full riot gear. He looked like he was from a SWAT team, according to witness Jennifer Seeger, who said that on MSNBC. She also said, actually CNN interviewed her as well. They said the shooter was dressed from head to toe in SWAT gear with Kevlar. He looked like one of the cops. That was really confusing to us. Now, this guy was unemployed, as we said. He was struggling to find work. He was collecting unemployment. Now, Nancy, how does a jobless former student, how is he able to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on a full-blown military arsenal?
Interesting. And why would somebody with high honors in a PhD program, number one, be unemployed? Because the university would employ him immediately if he was that bright to keep him.
Well, this is certainly
why would
a guy.
He drop out?
This is certainly a guy that evidently had a future ahead of him.
You know, Darren, I read something interesting too. When they went to apparently talk to his parents, his father had been kind of high up in the military, and they immediately took his father away. And the mother just said, you know, we don't know. They simply detained the father. And so, yeah, there's a lot of very, very interesting things going on here.
Yeah, now CBS out of New York, they said, quote, the latest developments include the fact that Holmes legally possessed 4 guns. They made it a point of saying he legally possessed everything that he had, which is some of which was bought from a local gun shop, and thousands of rounds of ammunition, which he purchased online. Oates told reporters Friday night, and that was, I guess Oates was the police. Anyway, all of them were purchased in the last 60 days. Everything he had evidently was purchased in the last 60 days. And again, where did he get the money for all of this? If he was an unemployed student, former student, authorities said that after rigorous efforts earlier Friday, they will on Saturday resume their attempt to enter Holmes' apartments, which Oates said appears to be filled with wires, tripwires, jars of ammunition, jars full of liquid, and things that look like mortar rounds. This Oates guy says, I personally have never seen anything like what the pictures show us is in there. But that was from a CBS News story with a headline, Aurora Police Chief, suspects guns and ammunitions all legally purchased, or all legally possessed. So here you have the fix, Nancy.
Yep.
Here you have the message to everyone. You know, it seems to me like, wasn't Bill Clinton involved in the Brady Bill? You know, wasn't there a Brady Bill passed that said that you had to have a background check in order to purchase firearms? Well, didn't that work out really well in this situation? And folks, that's proof once again that gun control laws don't work. They will never work. I don't know. I think we should go to some of these calls now. Alvis, he's in Alabama. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing, Darren?
You know, you were the one yesterday when you called me. You told me about this situation with the shooter in the door, you know, getting into the emergency exit. And that's probably...
Actually, Darren, there is a problem with that because they've already changed their story.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They already have changed the story on the whole thing. Now they're saying he come in through the front door. He didn't come in through the exit door now. He come in through the front door. That's what they're saying now.
Well, isn't that interesting? Let's go to Tennessee and talk to John. John, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Darren. Story's been changed. The latest is that came in through the front, sat down and watched the movie for a few minutes, left through the emergency exit, propped the door open, and returned. But like everything else, Darren, the story has changed numerous times. Originally, 12 killed, 20 injured. Then it's 12 killed, 70 injured. The latest I heard is 12 killed, 50 injured. What's amazing, Nancy and Darren, is this guy by no means was unintelligent. He was an honor student in the neuroscience department. He didn't, originally he dropped out. Now he was removed, and his ability to enter the building had been revoked. Apparently, if he had a passive key system, they took the card away. So he was unable. He was in the process of withdrawing. From what I'm gathering, Darren, it wasn't that he necessarily wanted to be withdrawn. They removed him. So you got to ask yourself, and you and I talked about this yesterday. Folks that listen to RBN know I look at moon phases. The night of the shooting was what's called a new moon. When you go to Wicca, when you go to find the significance of a new moon, you find out that it's also called the dark moon, Nancy. And the dark moon, at the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, now granted it's Knight, I believe the Dark Knight would be Batman. On a dark moon night in the city called Aurora, which is a Roman goddess of the dawn, there's too much going on, people, to believe that this guy wasn't either controlled, wasn't a MK Ultra participant, either in willingly or unwillingly participating in mind control experimentation. Neuroscience, Darren, is not psychology. It's not psychiatry. It is a study of what causes the mind to operate, the mechanical, electrical workings of the human brain. That's neuroscience. So they're trying.
Are they telling us that he's a mind control victim, John?
Well, I believe that they are. And the news is either ignorant of it, or they're ignoring it, or they're complicit in revealing the facts, but that's all they're doing. They're scratching the surface. They don't want to dig. They don't want to tell people. They don't want to let people know what's really going on. And
of course. Well, that's why we have RBN. That's why we have Alternative Truth Networks. And again, folks, a lot of this stuff sounds like crackpot ideas. If you're not a frequent listener, and you don't understand how this whole symbolism stuff works and how MK Ultra works, I just encourage you to stay tuned and keep listening, because in time, if you pay attention and listen with an open mind and at least explore the issues that we talk about here, you'll learn. But John, I appreciate.
One more thing, if I can. Our memories are short. Do you remember what was in the news just prior? In fact, the day of the Virginia Tech attacks, it was gun control in Washington. Now, here we are a week out from a vote on an international arms treaty, and we have a multi-murder in the city named after the Roman goddess of the dawn.
The dawn. What is it a dawn of? Dawn of the Dark Night. Isn't that?
All right. Appreciate
very chilling. Thank you so much. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Arizona and talk to Scott. Scott, you're on the air.
Hi. My question is those emergency exit doors all have alarms on them. So when you open up the door, the alarm goes off.
I was thinking about that myself. If the emergency exit was accessed, and now of course they've conveniently changed that now because maybe some other people started asking questions.
Yeah, how come alarms didn't go off?
Exactly.
That's all I had to say.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, and I appreciate that. That's absolutely right. And see, folks, here's the thing. If they have to tell the truth, 20 different ways, why does the story keep changing? Either he went through the emergency exit or he went through the front entrance. Which is it? Why does the story change? It seems like facts, there's an old saying, Nancy, that says facts are stubborn things. You can't treat facts like trying to nail Jell-O to the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, facts are facts. And, certainly erroneous numbers as far as the numbers of injured or whatever, that could be, that can change because as you learn more information. But generally, the basic story should stay the same. He entered through the emergency exit. Okay, what's difficult about this to figure out? Either he did or he didn't. There were certainly enough witnesses, were there not? And here's the other thing. He set off a smoke bomb in the theater before he started shooting. Now, was this to cover the possibility that there was a second shooter so nobody would see the second shooter? I don't know. I don't want to assume. I'm just asking questions here. Let's go to Brooklyn and talk to Tom. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, folks. Yeah, we're in a real manufactured media event here, aren't we?
I think so.
If we were going down the lone shooter's path, and I was this guy from Brooklyn that was really, really angry, you would buy a ticket, walk through, sit down, watch the movie for a little while, and then, go out the emergency exit, tape it, and which was conveniently not working because before you set up for the big picture, you set up the scenery. The scenery was already set up for this guy. Another situation is they made a really big deal about legally possess this and legally possess that. Why? Because the gun control freaks and the people who are into controlling guns need to have the people call out for a regulation on this issue.
Exactly.
Then how do we correct this? How could this possibly happen? Well, here's how it could possibly happen. No one knows anything about this guy. Now, I'll tell you something about this guy. He was a very, very bright neurosurgeon, neuro student, and very, very complex. He had access to the people who could program him. They were his teachers and mentors. He was in the middle of swimming with sharks. Okay? Darren, hold me over the break. I got some
I will. But Tom's in Brooklyn. We're talking about this Colorado shooting that took place in the early hours yesterday morning. And Tom, go ahead and continue with your thoughts, please.
A few things here. This young fella, very bright academic type, would not have access to explosives and ordnance. You cannot buy them across the counter. They have to be supplied to you by a criminal organization or the government. They're talking about mortar shells and C4. I don't know anybody that's ever bought that across the counter. And it's funny that the selection of guns are .40, which the feds carry, and 870s, which the feds carry, and AR-15s, which the feds carry. So maybe some of the gun walking happened right here in America. Another situation.
Good point. Very well said.
Another situation, Darren. How far is Aurora from Columbine? When when the people start to investigate, don't look at the clown in the spotlight. Look at the peripherals, okay? When you're looking at the peripherals, come up with a common denominator of what doctors had seen him, who had access to him, and what drugs was he taking. Every Schedule III drug has a DEA number on it, and if they were to see what drugs he was taking, they would be able to profile his actions. And number three, big number three is the common denominator in each and every one of these gun grabs is the United Nations. We need to get out of there. The United Nations has murdered more people in this country through their nonsense, okay? They are the enforcement and front people for the global government. And the bottom line here is they are murdering Americans at everything from population to control to weather control to chemtrails, everything. Now take our guns away so we can't even revolt,
Yep. Well,
that's my view on that.
You're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree more. Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. And, the other interesting thing, Darren, is Aurora is a suburb of Denver, and people need to go look up the artwork in the Denver airport sometime.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
I mean, that is the most peculiar, creepy thing I have ever seen.
Well, that's their agenda.
What'd you say, Tom?
That's their agenda.
Yep, that's right.
I agree with you.
That's their agenda. Well, folks, don't buy into the hype, and remember something. If you have the herd mentality, you're going to scream out for more gun legislation. If you have the intellect and haven't been drinking their fluoridated water, you'll have the brain matter necessary to connect the dots. To anyone with two brain cells that match, this is quite transparent.
Yeah. Well, and that's the problem is hopefully we're reaching out to people who've never heard any of this information before. Hopefully we're reaching more and more people all the time, new people. And all I can say is just stay tuned and continue to study these creatures. I don't even like to call them human, Tom.
One last thing before I jump out. Remember Klebold and Harris? They were wearing dark clothing too. So the government or their handlers dress them funny and send them out to do a horrid act.
Yeah, exactly.
Later, brother.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate the call. All right, I'll tell you what, folks. We got We got a short segment in the next hour, so I'll take George in Texas on this subject, and then that'll be our last call on the gun thing. I'm Darren Wiggs. Nancy Levan here. And I just want to say, I don't know if you folks heard when we brought our board operator up in Texas. I just want to reiterate that he said that there were a number of eyewitnesses that were posting on a website called Reddit, which is basically it's a bulletin board website. They have a number of different topics and different things that they post on there. But there were a number of eyewitnesses that were talking about that, and they said that they had they were inside the theater, they witnessed somebody get up, open the door from inside. They were evidently sitting inside the movie theater. They got up, opened the door, and let the guy in. Now, this is what they said on the website Reddit, and that would be consistent with the initial reports that we got from the media, which now, as has been pointed out, they have changed the story. And so now they're saying he actually went through. But so what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, is it looks like my initial thought that the guy had an accomplice from inside is actually true, that the ticket was purchased by whoever that accomplice, they purchased the ticket for the accomplice. He was allowed in through the exit door, through the emergency exit, and that's when he went on a shooting spree. So we'll watch the story carefully in the coming days, and we'll see what develops out of this. We'll see what lies come to the surface as time develops. But